from the Fulbright Game Company, Mr. Steve Gaynor! Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
I have so many thoughts. So let's start because it sounded like when Bree was introducing everybody, based on the applause, it's like 50-50 people who are most excited about you and most excited about Bill. That's exactly what I heard.
Right.
So let's say for the Bill people, why don't you tell us about you have your new company called Fulbright Company. Yeah. And your game is Gone Home. And for those of you who haven't played Gone Home, why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. I used to work. I think it was mentioned.
Coincidence.
Total
coincidence that Anthony said that your work was his favorite thing.
He mentioned the BioShock series.
Yeah.
So I was a designer on the BioShock series for a number of years, and then me and a couple of people that I used to work with on those games, we quit and moved to Portland and started our own very small independent game studio, and did it very Portlandly, like a band. We all moved into a house together, and our studio was in the basement. And yeah, we made a game called Gone Home, which is like, it's a very small game. You explore a house, and you kind of get to go through this family's stuff to find out who they are, what happened to them, what their story is.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an official genre for it. I would have called it like first-person cat burglar.
We tried to get a little further away from the home invasion angle.
So the character you're playing lives there, but I don't live there. And so I was like, I'm just looking at all these people's stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, we were kind of trying to walk that line, because in the game, in the fiction, you play the college-age daughter of the family who's coming home after being away for a year. So it's like, and you think your family's going to be there, but nobody's there. So it's like, where'd everybody go? There's a mystery. I need to find out what happened. So you kind of have permission to go through all the shit.
Right.
But you, in the chair,
right?
Just get to have that experience.
Yeah, and what I found, I don't know if this is common when you were like testing it out, but when I first started, you could just pick stuff up and look at it and examine it, and it's like beautifully rendered. Everything's incredibly beautiful, including like all of these handwritten notes.
Yeah.
And when I first started playing, I was very careful. And I picked it up, and then I put it back where it belonged, and I turned the lights off when I left, and I closed the door, and by the end I was like, screw it, it's not my house, and I was like throwing the Christmas duck, and then I'm just running around and throwing stuff. Is that a common thing with the way people play it? Do people like treat it like it's a real house when they first start playing?
Well, like, terrible people act the way that you did.
At the beginning or at the end? At the beginning or the end?
It really depends. It's a Rorschach test. You had the Alex Falcone version of going through this family's home and eventually deciding, fuck it, which is fine.
So when you're writing this, the thing it does develop like in a very clever way the story about what's happened to her family.
Yeah.
Do you think of yourself as a storyteller or as a game designer first, or do those both have to just live in your brain at the same time?
I mean, I think the thing that is probably the most interesting about like writing for a game is that really the design and the writing have to develop together. Because I think that it's the kind of thing where if you just were to extract just the story out of this game, just read through it, it's kind of like a very simple short story. But the reason that you care about it, I think, is because you're finding it through the interactivity, right? Like you're discovering it yourself. I think there's a certain level of engagement you have with it.
Right. So you can't think of it in terms of just the story, but you also can't think of the game without the story.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to be thinking of those both at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, we started from certain influences. You played the game. Thank you for playing. The game takes place in the 90s. And we made it in Portland, and I don't know. It's a little bit. It's a little bit of a thing.
One of the things she finds is a lot of tapes,
cassette
tapes with incredible bands. I really like this. It sounded like great '90s Riot Girl music.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
Yeah, we had some Pacific Northwest bands. We had Bratmobile and Heaven's to Betsy in the band. And Heaven's to Betsy was Corin Tucker's first band, who then was singer and Slater. Which was awesome, right? Because it's like we wanted to have this feeling of authenticity. It's not just stuff we made up, but there's actually music that you might have listened to when you were a teenager that you find in the game.
So this seems like a very going from shooting people to this game where you're discovering, to this love story about a young woman. Was this something like, were you on BioShock? Were you the one who was always pitching like, what if they met somebody perfect and fell in love?
Couldn't we just have it be nice?
Yeah. What if everything worked out for everybody?
Yes, you should have been in some of those meetings. No, I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I think that, you know, in a game like BioShock, the thing that's really interesting about it is that it takes place in this kind of dystopian society, right? Like, the danger is part of the story, part of the experience. And I think the flip side of that is when there's this expectation that you are going to be shooting, let's say, hundreds of people over the course of the game.
The way I play the game, I try not to hurt anybody. It's a Rorschach test, Steve.
How'd that work out for you? But you know, like when you know that's how, like, there's going to be a lot of, you know, violence and stuff in the game. You can't tell certain stories, right? Like
right.
You can't just kind of talk about a family and what they've gone through. So it was it was kind of liberating to be able to say, like, you know, we don't have to put in a bunch of gunplay or like crazy puzzles or anything. We can just
right.
talk about these people in a game. So I don't know, it was good.
And so you went from a big company though, being like a cog in a large company, a large machine, to this small company that is, I believe the credits was like, it was like 5 people and 12 cats.
Yes. We thanked our cats at the end. You have to.
You thanked more cats than people. There were 18 cats in the credits. Did they move into the house too?
Not all of them. Some of them worked remotely.
It's very progressive of you. So what's it like working in that small company? Like, do you love that small? I mean, you presumably you couldn't have known this was going to be as successful as it was, because it's been a huge hit. You won a ton of awards. Really, when you were first building this, like when you were first starting your first demo tape as a band, like you don't know if it's going to go. Right? Like, how was that as a small band, not knowing where it's going to go, versus the security of, like, this company's going to keep paying me no matter what happens?
I mean, I think that part of it is, you know, that you can take a chance, and you can be like, we're going to quit our jobs, and we're going to try and do this thing. And if we totally faceplant and we don't ship it, or we put it out and nobody cares or whatever, it's like, all right, you just wasted a bunch of your, you know, savings, but you can get another job. You know, you can, right? Like, it's not like if you try something and mess up, that you're done forever, right?
Right.
I mean, and like, we moved back here and it's cheap. So my plan, if this game failed, I was like, let's see if Sizzle Pie like wants somebody to serve some pizzas. I can pay, like, I know people pay their rent here.
They do,
just
yeah.
like, you know,
I think it's only
going
to be cheap for another like 3 months, though, guys.
And also, some people don't pay their taxes, so that's how they make it
I
work.
don't know what you're talking about. How dare you?
So I mean, like, on the one hand, it's scary or whatever in a way, but on the other hand, I don't know. We had mostly we wanted to make a game that we would think was good, and so we were like, okay. When we were finishing up, we were like, all right, we're happy with this. I think it's pretty good, you know. And hopefully enough people will agree that they'll actually like pay enough that we can keep doing this thing. And
So
it's worked out that way, right?
It has, and now that all this has happened, you've won these awards, and it's been so successful. Do you have to blow up this company and go start a 1-person, 2-cat company?
Scaled down.
Yeah,
smaller.
you gotta keep going
I'm
smaller.
not, and so
What's your solo
well,
project
let's
like?
do that thought experiment. I do that. It works out great. What's the?
You have to lose one of the cats. It's the only option.
Find a cat that'll work for Cher.
It would be too heartbreaking to have to lay off a cat. I don't think I could do it.
So one of the things about this game is that it seems like if you go to Steam and you read through some of the comments, there are some people who are upset that there's not more gunplay in it.
Yeah, like almost none. Okay, there's none.
Yeah, there's none gunplay. And you can't even break their mugs. Not that I tried. But no matter how high in the house you get and throw the mug, it'll never break.
You were just tossing shit down the stairs.
And eventually, I won it.
Rorschach test.
I left the freezer open. The milk is in the microwave. It's chaos. You did give a lot of like freedom for someone to mess around.
And then your parents are going to come home and they're going to be like, what is wrong with our daughter? It's like a crazy man was controlling her.
Okay, well, don't act like I'm the first crazy man to play this game, because there is a letter where her sister talks about a sexual encounter, and you don't get to read all of it.
Yep.
It disappears, and no matter how many times, not that I tried, no matter how many times you click on it, you don't get to see the full details of
And even if you quit and come back in, it won't let you read it. I'm not saying I tried, says Alex Falcone.
At that point I had some stuff to break, so I didn't keep playing, but if I screenshotted that, would there have been the full letter?
That's on the internet. You can Google it.
That would be creepy. So you got some. There was some feedback about that. But now that you're being so punk rock about your career.
Yeah.
Like, do you have to read comments like that you probably would have been able to ignore?
No, you don't have to read. You do not have to read the comments on the internet. No one's gonna make you. Some of it you can't avoid. Like when you get comments on the company blog, you get an email about it, right? But I mean, for the most part, the interesting thing is if you don't seek out most negative comments, you won't see them, because most people are not very confrontational about that stuff. It's the rare internet person who will actually track you down and tell you to your internet face that they hate what you made. Mostly that's off in the corner somewhere, so it's not that hard to avoid.
Yeah, and do you, now that you've got this done, it's been a huge success, obviously you have to release a second one where I can buy more things with coins and complete some surveys.
Purchases.
Yeah, obviously that's the next move, right?
It's like you're reading through, you feel very tired. Do you want to buy?
You can either play for 8 more hours, or if you complete this survey, you can skip to the attic.
Rate us a 5.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have that kind of pressure too? Because you're building it. This is the gaming's going in some different directions. That's one of them, certainly. Do you feel pressure to do that? Do you feel pressure to do the same thing? Are you going to go make a game that's just gunplay and nothing else? What's the most punk rock thing to do next?
Well, that's a lot of different questions. What is the most punk rock thing to do next? That is a different question than what am I going to do next.
Okay, great.
I'm afraid.
I'm interested in that.
I'm not punk rock enough to do whatever the most punk rock possible thing would be.
Fair enough.
My job is to sit in front of a computer all day. The least punk rock thing you can do.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a less punk rock thing, but I can't think of it at the moment.
There's a reason.
Do your taxes. That's all. I've got nothing else.
No, I mean the thing is, we were a very small, team. Made a very small game. It's done pretty well. The nice thing is it gives us the freedom to do our next thing without saying we gotta get something out there in 6 months or we're gonna go broke, or we have to That's the kind of thing when you're working for a big company, when you're working for a publicly traded company,
right.
You're gonna end up doing the direct sequel because the stockholders know that's the most sure bet to get good return on investment or whatever.
If you sold Gone Next Door, I would buy it. I'm curious what their neighbors are up to.
Which I'll mark that down. I'll take it on advisement. But the nice thing is, there's nobody that's saying here's the next thing you have to do. So we're basically going to say we want to take Gone Home as a base, as kind of the core of the experience we want to build, and then just kind of expand out from there and see what the one interesting thing we can add to it is, but not go crazy, not make it something totally different or hire 100 people or whatever. It's just take the next step. And
then you'll put it to the vote and see what the cats say, and then you'll move on with whatever's next.
We do require consensus from all 16 cats.
You do, and you did just get you just started announced you're porting to consoles.
Yeah, we're going to be on your home video game consoles, because this is a PC only game.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to just put a game on a computer when you're 4 people.
Right.
But we're gonna put it on Xboxes and PlayStations and stuff.
So check that out, and then look for Gone Next Door in a couple years. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Gaynor, thank you so much for being here, Steve!